From the East Texas Sports Network studios, powered by Texas Dairy Queen, a tradition of excellence, the ETSN podcast, where Clint Buckley and Mike Graham offer their, well, they just talk. But who really cares? It's what they do best. It's the lowdown on everything high school football in East Texas. And now, Clint Buckley and Mike Graham.
It's December and Christmas is approaching, but before all of that, the state of Texas will crown 10 11-man football state champions in just a couple of weeks, and East Texas has 10 teams left that still have that goal alive for them. Welcome to the ETSN.fm podcast. I am Clint Buckley, and I'm joined by Mike Graham. How was your holiday, Mike?
It was good, and I got an oil change, so I'm ready to put a little bit more miles on my car this week, and it's going to be fun.
Oh, what a rotten Thanksgiving.
We're out of East Texas now.
What a rotten Thanksgiving. You had an oil change instead of turkey? That's terrible. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Like I mentioned, 10 teams still alive in East Texas. Several of them that you and I both consider favorites this week. There are a couple of underdogs, and there's one game that I think you and I both feel like is a toss-up. But first things first, recapping quickly last week, Gilmer and Gladewater. The game had hype. It's a matchup that had been discussed and prognosticated and predicted upon ever since the season began. Them not being in the same district and situated the way they were in the bracket in Region 2 and 4A Division 2. Everyone knew this matchup was coming. Third round, Gilmer-Gladewater, two longtime rivals separated by just a dozen miles along Highway 271. It lived up to the hype, and not just the game. The game was great in itself, and I hate to minimize the game's impact, but I was blown away by the crowd coming out to the game. I mean, I talked to you about it. Longview ISD estimated over 15,000 fans in a venue that's capacity is 9,200. And I told you this off air. Largest high school crowd I've ever seen in a non-college or pro stadium.
Yeah, it looked cool. I liked the pictures that I saw of it, and I thought it was really cool that the majority of fans were wearing black on both sides. It gave it that cool night effect. It was. I mean, if you want to show someone the impact of high school football in Texas, the photos that were snapped during that Gilmer-Gladewater game are going to do the sport justice.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times Hollywood kind of over-dramatizes the Texas high school football thing. I mean, I think if you look at the movie Friday Night Lights, you had a sold-out Astrodome for the state championship game. That didn't happen. They didn't even play there. But that's beside the point. The TV show does the same type of thing. Even the big time stadiums like Allen's, who's currently is still under construction after the faulty concrete situation. But I mean, they don't sell out their home games. It's just too big. But Longview 9,200, I thought it would be a sellout. I had no idea that there'd be 15,000 people there.
Yeah, probably violated some fire marshal laws.
Yeah, and me and Hayden Henry from the Longview News Journal were sitting there talking about it when they opened up the hill for people to sit on or stand on during the game. The only thing separating them from the field was a little rope that anyone could step over, and I didn't. I mean, they may have been there, but I didn't see like an added measure of security along that. And I was like, so what's to stop these people from rioting if something bad happens in the game? Fortunately, that wasn't the case. The game was superb. For those of you who aren't aware, and I'm pretty sure for those of you who listen to our podcast, you are aware of what happened. 41-35 Gilmer win. The game played out exactly like I thought it would. Both teams played to their strengths. Gilmer scored quick. Gladewater took its time. Gladewater had a huge edge up front on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line was tremendous all game long, and their defensive line, Dalen Mack. I mean, Jeff Traylor tweeted, Gilmer's coach Jeff Traylor tweeted at Dalen Mack after the game, saying it was one of the best individual performances he'd ever seen in a high school game, and this is a guy that's been doing it for more than 20 years. And Dalen Mack was a warrior. I mean, if he was going to go out, this was going to be the end of his high school career. He was going to leave it all out there on the field, and 18 carries, a season high, 2 rushing touchdowns, had a couple of big fourth down conversions. James Reese came up huge for them, had over 150 yards rushing. They had contributions from Justice Centers as well. Gladewater did what it does. They controlled the clock. They had over 60 rushing attempts. They only threw 3 passes in the game. Gilmer, on the other hand, we talk all the time about Gilmer being so diverse and having just an array of playmakers, which is true. But in big games, you feed your big horse, and that was Chris Boyd. He had 5 of their 6 touchdowns, including the game winner with 23 seconds left on a draw play, or with 9 seconds left, a 23-yard run on a draw play with 9 seconds left. And it's kind of funny. That last drive from Gilmer, kind of in a nutshell, puts what they do offensively in a capsule. I mean, they had 1 minute left, no timeouts. They're inside their own 20, and they score.
Go 80 yards.
I mean, that's just what they do.
That's what they do. And we were talking about this. You mapped out their time possession, and Gilmer had the ball for 13 minutes the entire game.
13 minutes, scored 41 points. That's pretty dang efficient.
That's very impressive, especially when you're getting dominated in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, Gilmer just wasn't on the field for very long. I mean, especially in the first half. But overall, Gladewater held the ball for over 34 minutes. Gilmer was 13 and change. But that wasn't the number is surprising. But the fact that there was a big discrepancy in time of possession didn't surprise me, just because that's what those two teams do. I mean, Gilmer doesn't worry itself with time of possession. They're just in the business of putting up points. And Gladewater knew they had to keep Gilmer's offense off the field as long as possible, which they did. And they were an excellent chance to win that game. They're up 35-33 after Gilmer had scored with about 4 minutes to play. They missed the 2-point conversion. Gilmer tries an onside kick, and they'd already recovered one earlier in the game. So they try it. They don't get it. Gladewater picks it up, gets a couple of big first downs, including one on a 21-yard run by James Reese, which I believe took them inside Gilmer's 30-yard line, a play he could have scored on. There was about 3 minutes left. I believe Gilmer had just 1 timeout left on defense. It was I believe a 4th and 5 play, or I could be wrong. It was either a 3rd and long or a 4th and 5 play, where James Reese, I believe it was a counter play. They kind of gashed Gilmer with counters all night when they weren't giving the dive to Dalen at fullback. They were using the counter and pitching it out wide to Reese, and that's where they were getting a lot of their yards. But he had a chance. He had a chance to score a touchdown and put that game away, because if Gladewater kicks the PAT, it's a 2-score game. He goes down on his own, which I thought was the right thing to do. I mean, Gilmer was out of timeouts. They're already inside the 30, and there's I guess about a little over a minute left. It's 4th and 2, and Gilmer calls its last timeout before the play, and everyone knew who was going to get the ball. It was going to be Dalen Mack, and which, I mean, he's 330 pounds and he's a good athlete. Why wouldn't he get the ball? He gets the ball, stops just inches short. A lot of people thought up there he got the first down. I mean, it was that close. But Gilmer takes over its own 18-yard line, no timeouts, like 1:09 left, and then they score with 9 seconds to go. So they go at 82 yards in a minute, score the game-winning touchdown, and that's how that went. That's how that game ended.
Love John Barry's call to go for it when you've got them pinned. They're out of timeouts, 2 yards,
but you don't want to give Gilmer the ball back under any circumstances. And I mean, that was the right call for sure. But it took me a little while to recover from that game. It was quite an undertaking to try to write a game story to do that game justice. I don't think I did, but I tried my best. But that's in the past now. On to week 4 of the playoffs, and we've got 9 matchups. We're gonna not go too much in depth into the 9 matchups, but we're gonna separate them into 3 categories. Our East Texas teams. Underdogs, toss-ups, and favorites.
And it looks like it's going to be a good week.
It looks like it could be a good week for East Texas. we'll start off with the underdogs, and I think there's two obvious ones here. Argyle is facing Liberty Ilo. Liberty Ilo's had a great run. I don't think many people expected them to be where they're at right now. They began the year 1-5. I saw the season opener against Gilmer. Wasn't very pretty. I knew they had talent. I knew they had a chance to get better. And boy, have they gotten better. They won 7 in a row. The only problem is they're facing a hotter team than they are. Argyle has won 29 games in a row. And they're coming off a tough test the week before against Kennedale. I had to kind of rally and pull that game out of the fire. The big key in this one is Nick Ralston, the running back for Argyle, the Arizona State commit. 6'1", 230 pounds, a bruiser, a 3-year starter for them. I believe he has well over 4,000 rushing yards for his career. So that's going to be primary objective number one for LA's defense, which has struggled in the last couple of weeks against the run. Against Carrollton Ranchview, allowed over 360 rushing yards. Last week against Paris quarterback Quez Allen, who's a dynamic dual-threat quarterback, allowed 192 rushing yards. The good news for LA is that both of those teams featured dual-threat quarterbacks. This is not the case for Argyle. All of their running goes through Nick Ralston. Their quarterback has had a pretty good season. He started off kind of slow, but he's really turned it on. Cooper Rogers, who is the head coach, Todd Rogers' son, he's piloting that offense. Just too much going for Argyle right now for me to go out on a limb and pick Liberty Ilo.
Well, the playoffs at this point only consist of two kinds of teams in there: perennial powers and then red hot teams. And LE certainly is hot right now. I'm excited to see how they handle it. I'm kind of surprised that Argyle's in this position because they got gutted by graduation last year. But here they are, and you're right. It's going to be a huge challenge for LE.
On to our second underdog, Henderson Lions. Henderson's had a great year, and I don't know if many people realize how special the year that they're having. Yes, they have won a state championship recently. Yes, they had a tremendous 3-year run, starting with that championship in 2010, and then carrying it on to 2012. With a semifinal appearance in 11, and then making it to the quarterfinals in 2012. Last year was an off year. They missed the playoffs. A lot of, weren't really, you and I both thought they'd make the playoffs out of that district, but probably as a 4th place team. And what do? They go out and win their first district title since 2000, and they've just kept rolling since. But, and Zane Bowles has been a dynamic player for them this season, both through the air and on the ground. We'll talk a little bit more about him later on in the show, but Zane Bowles gives them a chance in most games. I don't know if he's enough for them to handle Navasota. Have you glanced at their offensive numbers? They're ridiculous.
Yeah. They're above 5,000 yards, aren't they?
Oh, well above 5,000 yards. They're averaging close to 60 points a game, maybe even over 60 points a game. Their quarterback Shelton Epler has 60 touchdown passes already, 60 in 13 games, and then of course their best player is their junior receiver, Trendavian Dixon, who's already committed to Baylor. And that's all you need to say, a receiver committed to Baylor.
Yeah.
Gabe Brooks, formerly of ETSN and now with Scout.com, we've talked about him a little bit, and he calls Trendavian Dixon KD Cannon 2.0. So, and he's already set a state record for receiving touchdowns in a season. He has 34. The previous record was 33. T. Goree for Carthage had, I believe, 28 last year, and that was a tremendous season. We were talking about him having an outside shot of being our super team offensive player of the year, and that was with, Blake Bogenschutz, his quarterback, and then Patrick Mahomes at White House too. But this kid, 34 touchdowns, over 1,700 receiving yards. And he's not alone. They have other options.
And potentially 3 more games to go.
Exactly. And they've been number one for most of the year. I think Stephenville may have begun the season number 1 in 4A, but they suffered an early season loss, and ever since Navasota's held on to that top spot. And they've just been blowing out teams. People want to point to their soft district, but they've taken care of business against those teams. And they do. They have one common opponent with Henderson, and that's Chapel Hill. And if you just use the transitive power with Navasota and Henderson beats Chapel Hill 37-14, 3 touchdowns. Navasota beats Chapel Hill a couple of weeks ago in the playoffs, 49-28. that suggests that it could be an evenly matched game, but I just think Navasota just has too much, especially on offense. But, Henderson's been proving people wrong all year. That's kind of been their MO, so we'll see.
And with Henderson holding onto the ball and running, hopefully limit Navasota's possessions.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Henderson pulling the upset. I could. It's going to be tough.
Interesting you bring that up, because Chapel Hill has a great running game also, but their running game is a little bit different when they're explosive.
Right.
When they get in the open, they keep running until they get to the end zone. Henderson, while they have an explosive, combo in Randy Davis and LaKendrick Van Zant, Zane Bowles leads them in rushing yards and carries, and he's just a big dude.
Yeah.
He does have the ability to break off, long touchdown runs, but by and large, he's pushing the pile for 5, 6, 7 yards at a time.
Yeah, and when he does that, another 40 seconds comes off.
Exactly. So Zane Bowles is obviously going to be a huge key for Henderson. The defense, I don't know if there is a defense for Navasota. They're going to score their points. Just Henderson's going to have to be good enough on offense to hang with them in order to have a chance. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. But that's Saturday afternoon. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I'll be there in Lufkin, so it should be a lot of fun. So those are our two big underdogs this week, Liberty Ilo and Henderson. Ironically enough, if they kept on winning, they would meet each other in the state championship game, but they have two awfully big tasks ahead of them this week. So moving on to, we have one toss-up game, and I think a lot of that, for me anyway, has to do with just not that much familiarity with either one of the teams. I haven't seen Mineola this year. You just saw them last week against Pilot Point. You know a little bit about them.
Yeah, I loved them. That was such a fun game. Stiff wind kind of ruined what you'd want to do on offense. The two teams pretty much exclusively ran the ball, and instead of calling that football, I call that gridiron ball. It's just, they're just moving back and forth down the field with the run. Then very last offensive play for Mineola, they throw a 63-yard touchdown on a little screen, a wide receiver screen.
And the momentum at that point had gone all.
Yeah. Pilot Point had scored the previous two touchdowns to tie the game, and they needed a 2 and got that a few seconds before this touchdown play occurred. So it was exciting to see, but Mineola is a run-oriented team. That's going to be good because the weather could be bad on Friday night. Pottsboro, very balanced, probably like a normal high school team. 2/3 of its offense is coming through the air, another third through the running game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up. I do know that Mineola's defensive line is fantastic and can confirm that after seeing them in person. You got guys like, in their front, you've got Juan Vargas, 152 tackles. Trevor Keener, I think, Juan Vargas has 162 tackles. Keener has 154. They're turnover machines. I think that they match up well against Pottsboro. And sophomore cornerback Noah Sneed didn't get a lot of reps just because they ran into a Pilot Point team that also liked to run the ball and were kind of forced into that. But he's a guy with 8 interceptions through 13 games, so he could be a factor in this game. I think that Mineola's got a good shot against Pottsboro. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. You'll have duties on that game Saturday, right? Yes,
2 o'clock, Royce City.
Royce City.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, another quick thing about Mineola, real quick. I believe they've won 10 in a row. Is that right? Didn't they start the year 0-3?
Yeah. They're
rolling.
Yeah, they are. And again, red hot teams, classic powerhouses, and here I think you've got 2 red hot teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. So that's our one toss up for this week. Now on to our favorites, and when we say favorites, we're not saying that these teams are just going to roll away with wins. I just think that they're in the position as favorites. I think that if they play their A game, they should come out on top. So, and we'll start with the John Tyler Lions, who, man, they're looking about as good as anybody right now in East Texas.
Yeah, that's the game that forced me to get my oil changed because it's going to be in Denton, a 134-mile drive for the Lions to a 34-mile drive for McKinney North. And once they get there, I think that this game, it's extremely complicated because weather is a factor.
Mm-hmm.
McKinney North has an Oklahoma State running back commit by the name of Ronald Jones, who has 1,800 yards and really has only played 11 games due to an ankle injury. really impressive. And they've got size along their offensive skill positions, and where they have size, John Tyler doesn't yield much size, and they're quite athletic. I think that's the key match of the game. McKinney North's offense versus John Tyler's defense. But when John Tyler has the ball, they've been pretty explosive, and they showed that to Rockwall Heath last week.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to bring up too is, I haven't seen John Tyler in a while. I'm trying to remember the last game I covered of theirs. God, may have been the Lufkin game, way back in October. But the one thing I am impressed with their defense. Their defense is as good as it gets, in my opinion, in this area. They're the best defense in East Texas, I believe, all the way across the board. They're very good up front on the defensive line. Pierre Leonard, Braylon Jones, Jasavier Reese, and they're awesome in the back end. Ike Warren, DeAndre Williams, Bryson Gibson, Jordan Owens. They're special on defense. They're not quite as good at linebackers. I'm not saying that they're not good players, but that's the strengths of their defense are up front and in the back end.
And those are where you'd want them if you had to give up.
Exactly. But I will say this: McKinney North's quarterback. Everybody talks about Ronald Jones, and rightfully so. I mean, he's going to Oklahoma State, but their quarterback had a huge game last week, and he's got pretty good numbers on the season, passing and rushing the ball.
Nate Hutchins, and he has more than 3,000 total yards. I think with this game he could break. If I remember it correctly, he could break 3,000 passing yards.
Yeah.
And you look at his film, and really explosive player, and definitely gives the John Tyler secondary two things to worry about, because they can throw the ball and he can run. And
that's where the linebackers come into play too.
Yeah.
I mean, you might see a situation where they're spying on the quarterback, and that's one thing. Zach Hall for Lee had a field day against them early in the season. I know it was way back in September. But he ran the read option game to perfection. I don't know exactly how much read option McKinney North runs. I don't really know what their offense bases out of. But running quarterbacks, at least Zach Hall gave JT's defense problems early in the season. I am confident that they can shut down or at least contain Ronald Jones enough to not make him that big of an impact. But the quarterback is something to watch, and that'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. Moving on, Gilmer versus Atlanta. Atlanta's a team that we cover. I didn't put them in the underdog category just because I wanted to save the favorite talk for Gilmer. I think Gilmer. I hate to do a disservice to Gladewater by calling Gilmer's win last week a wake-up call, because I think that those two teams are pretty evenly matched. And Jeff Traylor even said it himself. If they played 100 times, they'd win 50 and we'd win 50. So, but being in a close game like that, I think helps them, because their goal ever since the beginning of the season was to win the state championship game. And those are the expectations really every year in Gilmer. And to have it come dangerously close to ending like that, I think may have shaken some of the cobwebs, and maybe got them out of I don't want to call it sleepwalking mode, because I it sounds like I'm just dogging on Gladewater, but I'm not. I think a close game helps Gilmer this week against Atlanta.
No doubt, and they haven't been used to playing 4 quarters. Their starting quarterback, McLean Carter. He sat 20 quarters this season to 32 played.
I think only one other game had he played in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was probably Tatum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Atlanta, tremendous season for them this year. 12-1. Chase Musgrove is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks we have in the area, both running and passing. It seems like every week he accounts for at least 5 touchdowns, sometimes 6. They have other good complementary players like Daquan Allen, the running back, Edric King, Jeremy Smith. They've got talent for sure, and they put it on Tatum last week. I was kind of surprised. I figured Atlanta would win just because they won the district matchup, but it was a 6-point game. 34-28 during the season, and they just rolled all over Tatum. It was 41-0 at halftime. I was stunned at how well they played against Tatum. That being said, I think there's a huge difference between Gilmer and Atlanta, and I'll tell you why. Gladewater played Atlanta, and that was our game of the week. I remember it was, I think, the second week in district, and Gladewater had come off this huge stomping of Tatum, like a 44-point win over Tatum. They go to Atlanta, Atlanta was undefeated at that point. Gladewater had just the one loss. And Gladewater won the game pretty handily, 36-14 on the road. And if you believe Jeff Traylor and you think that Gladewater is right on par with Gilmer, then I don't see how you don't see Gilmer as a pretty significant favorite going into the game Friday.
You're right, but with Musgrove, both quarterbacks in this game more than 2,500 yards passing. And,
yes,
I don't think that the two offenses necessarily have to be super efficient like Gilmer had to be and Gladewater had to be against them. I feel like they're going to be opportunities to claw back into this game just because of the way that the two offenses play in throwing and stalling or scoring or whatever. That Atlanta might be able to keep it close, but when you've got Blake Lynch and Chris Boyd and really good quarterback on the other side and a respectable defense overall, it's going to be tough for Atlanta.
Another big favorite, Wascom this week against Gunner. God, you don't see 70 points put up in the third round of the playoffs very often.
I told you they'd beat Howe.
I mean, geez, 71-21. The game, I think the game story was up before 11 p.m. Friday night. It was a kickoff at 7:30. There was like 90 points scored in that game, and it was still over by 10 o'clock, or before 10 o'clock. 71-21. Wascom puts up almost 600 rushing yards. And you want to talk about options in the running game. It could be anybody. It could be Kevin Johnson. It could be Junebug Johnson. It could be Chan Amy. It could be the quarterback, Trace Carter. It could be Dylan Benton, the fullback. They're just loaded in the backfield.
Yeah, I want to line up behind that offensive line and see what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd love to have Junebugs and Kevin Speed, too. That would help. But, Wascom looks really good right now. Gunner, they beat ARP a couple of weeks ago in the playoffs. It was a pretty tight game, if I remember correctly. And then Wascom, that was their common opponent, ARP. Wascom, I believe, beat ARP by 10 at home.
34-24.
Yeah, so there's a common opponent there. But Wascom, I think, is playing. I talked to Whitney Keeling earlier in the season, and this is back when they were rolling. They were, in district, and I asked him about how his team was playing. He says, no, our defense is hit or miss, and we really aren't clicking that well on offense, and they're still averaging like 50 points a game. But I have a feeling now that they're peaking on offense. I mean, you don't do that to teams that deep in the playoffs. What they did to Howe last week.
Yeah, it's funny how these two teams got to the district. I mean, this thing really became a District 8 versus District 5 kind of battle. I mean, they all teams were up from those two districts by the second round, and Gunner took care of some District 8 teams, and this will be Wascom's third consecutive District 5 team, Gunner being the district champion from District 5.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I mean, Wascom's the District 5 killers, and they've crushed some opponents.
They've got one more on the hit list.
Yeah, exactly, and they've crushed some opponents that, granted, Gunner played earlier in the season before the playoffs, but it looks good for Wascom. It really does.
And talk about teams turning it on at the right time. How about the Newton Eagles?
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, they just stomped on Franklin last week.
Yeah, and you've got Jace Thomas and Callum Foster absolutely rolling now. They've got some really good defensive players. We're going to dive into one shortly.
And it's not one that you would think of right off the bat with them.
No, and I believe now they've got 3 players over 100 tackles, which is obviously a big season accomplishment. They're just more athletic than the teams they're running into.
I was scratching my head early on this year about Newton because they looked bad against Tatum in the season opener, 39-7 loss. Even though we thought Tatum might have been a slight favorite going into the game, I didn't expect Newton to lose that bad.
Yeah.
But they got it together after a couple of rough stretches early in the season. They beat West Orange Stark during the non-district, and West Orange Stark is they're still alive in the playoffs. They're playing LaGrange this week in a regional final in 3A. So
yeah,
4A.
You're seeing their non-district payoff. I think. I mean, they scheduled only 4A Division II teams or 4A teams, and
yeah, they played Henderson too.
And they played them well. That was their best game in that kind of cruddy beginning of the year phase.
Yeah, and I think that may have been the week before they beat West Orange Stark.
Yeah, and I mean, on fire after they crushed Corrigan Camden, and that was a really good football team.
That was an eye-opener too.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of eye-opening moments this season. The West Orange Stark win, Corrigan-Camden win, I believe, midway through the district, and then last week against Franklin. I mean, Franklin. I mean, they had been as high as number 2 in the state poll, and they're historically a pretty good program, notorious for making deep runs, and Newton wasn't having any of it. 49-21, the game really was never close. So Wascom and Newton are rolling. We expect them to do the same this week.
And they're the other all East Texas
championship
option. They run into each other opposite sides of the bracket, wouldn't meet till the state title game.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that next week because I have a pretty good feeling that both of those two teams will still be around next week, so we'll delve into all of that. Two 2A teams still left in East Texas, and the first one is Alto. Alto is legit. Alto is for real. I've been saying that since that crushing defeat of Tenaha. I mean, it was 72-21.
Yeah.
Back in week 5. And they shut out an undefeated team last week, Union Grove, 47-0. I thought the game would be a little bit more competitive than that. I still thought Alto would win pretty handily, but 47-0, that speaks volumes to the way they're playing right now. Their quarterback, Keenan Johnson's having an unbelievable season.
Yeah, they're not sitting in their stats right now. I think they're holding on to them to keep it a little.
I got them, and I will forward them to you, buddy. So I'll give you a little bit more work later on today.
Great.
So you can throw those on up there.
What's he at? I mean, how many total yards?
He is up over 2,000 rushing yards, and he's thrown for 1,500.
Well, there you go.
So, and I think he's got like 17 or 18 passing touchdowns and 33 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, a problem a lot of teams will run into when they've got a guy like Keenan Johnson is that if you can shut him down, shut down the entire offense. But it's hard to find someone like that on the 2A level.
And Alto is not a one-man show either. I mean, he has big numbers, but I mean, this is the team that won the track title, the team boys 2A team track title back in May. Now, they have a ton of speed. Jaron Shaw is an 1,100-yard rusher. Their running back. He's tiny but explosive. They've got other big playmakers like Tayarius Hackett, Javiante Mumfrey, Ladarius Pope, who had a couple of big catches last week. So they're sound. Centerville, they're not flashy. They're one of those teams that just kind of gets it done. They have about 30 different ball carriers. They're a very run oriented team, but I don't expect them to give Alto much of a fight. In fact, if I have one lock at all this week, it's this.
Yeah, my big question is Centerville. Is that town that's supposedly halfway between Dallas and Houston? Always makes me antsy as I pass through it.
It makes you antsy.
Yeah, you want to get to Dallas. Or
I got you. Yeah, I guess. I mean, Centerville. I guess it makes sense. Right along I-45. I've never actually been to the town. I'm sure it's a nice place, but I don't think their football team has much of a chance this week against Alto. No offense to the folk in Centerville. If I do happen to run out of gas or my car breaks down within the vicinity of the town, please show mercy. It's not personal. It's just business. And then the last game, Tenaha versus Iola. This is intriguing. Tenaha, they have that ugly game we just mentioned against Alto, but other than that, they've played great. They had a couple of really nice non-district wins against Brook Hill. A pretty good TAPS Division II team. Beat White Oak, a 3A Division I playoff qualifier. Iola's undefeated, and they're undefeated. They haven't played anybody, really. I looked up their opponent's cumulative record this season is like 48-81 or something like that. They played in a very weak district, but they've taken care of business. They have one common opponent, Normandy. Iola beat them 57-12. In their district finale in the regular season. And then last week, Alto beat Normandy Tenaha beat Normandy 47-7. So, that if you're going to use that transitive power, and that may give off the impression of it being evenly matched, but I've seen Tenaha in this round the last 3 years, and none of those games have been close in the regional final.
Yeah, and you like the team that's been battle tested and you just look at how lopsided the score was with Alto, and you go, okay, turnovers played a giant part in this game. So.
No, and they have Kobe Caraway, and that helps too.
Yeah.
2,000 yards on the season.
2,060.
Yep, 2,060, and he's only played in 10 games.
Yeah.
So, and he's on a streak of 5 straight games of over 200 yards. So, Iola's going to have their work cut out for him. That game's Friday night in Tyler. So we feel pretty good about John Tyler, Gilmer, Wascom, Newton, Alto, and Tenaha. Mineola, I think, is a toss-up. I think it could go either way. And two big underdogs this week, Argyle and Navasota. Here's a question. Two big underdogs, LE and Henderson going up against Argyle and Navasota. Here's a question real quick before we move on. Out of the two big underdogs that East Texas has this weekend, Liberty Ilo and Henderson, who do you think has the best chance of winning?
I think it's Henderson.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
do you want me to elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, I think Henderson's the best team out of those two, but I also think Navasota is a lot better. I mean, not a lot better, but I think they're significantly better than Argyle. So I don't know. Ellie's been playing pretty good right now, and the lasting image I have of Navasota was the state championship game a couple of years ago in 2012 against Gilmer, where me and Gabe Brooks, who was here at the time, we left AT&T Stadium that night, both saying that was the best 3A defense we'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was on board with the best 3A team. I mean, there have been some good ones. I've seen a bunch of good 3A teams. You talk about the Carthages, the Chapel Hills, the Hendersons, the Gilmers. I've seen a bunch of great teams, and Navasota may have been the best I'd seen at that point. But it's 2 years later.
Yeah, no doubt. Navasota, always a great program. I just feel like the way that Henderson's going to try to attack them, if they can hang on to the ball, and if they can be efficient with their offensive possessions, and that means basically scoring on all of them, I think that they match up better.
I mean, we say underdogs. We're not saying that these two teams aren't going to win. I mean, and we're not saying that all the favorites that we've lined out for you are gonna win either. I mean, at this point, all of these games could go either way. I will say though that I would be very surprised if Alto lost. Again, no disrespect to Centerville. I don't mean to pick on you guys, but other than that, I mean, at this point in the season, you shouldn't be really surprised by any result in the playoffs. I mean, the teams are here for a reason. They're all good. So a lot to look forward to this weekend, the first weekend in December. 10 teams in East Texas are now just 2 wins away from reaching the state championship game in Arlington. Wouldn't that be fun? So good luck to everybody this week. Before we get out of here, we want to give shout-outs to our offensive and defensive ETSN.fm and Dairy Queen Players of the Week. First up on offense, we mentioned him earlier, Henderson senior quarterback Zane Bowles. Big game last week against Jasper, 60-43. They gave up 43 points, so they needed a lot of help on offense, and Bowles certainly delivered. 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then 208 passing yards, 110 rushing yards. So, what is that? 318. My math is fleeting.
Oh, I was preparing for my speech.
But yeah, so congratulations to Zane Bowles. He'll have to have another big one this week in order for Henderson to pull the upset against Navasota.
Yes, it is 318.
Yes. All right. So defense.
Yeah, it's Newton junior linebacker Tanner Holmes, who had a really good game in Newton's win. 17 tackles, but 6 tackles for loss. There's some linebackers that'll go a whole season without 6 tackles for loss. So to do that in one game.
And what's impressive about that is Franklin is one of those teams that never has negative running plays.
Yeah.
Because they're always so big and physical, and they run all the time, that they're going to at least get 1 yard. They're going to fall forward.
Right.
And for him individually to have 6 for loss, I mean, who knows how many more Newton had as a team. But congratulations.
And also broke 100 yards with his final tackle in that game. So he's on the board. He'll be permanently enshrined with all the
100
other guys.
tackles.
100 tackles.
Yeah. So congratulations to Zane Bowles from Henderson and Tanner Holmes from Newton, our offensive and defensive players of the week. All right, we still got a busy week left up on our website. We have 3 previews, I believe, up already today. This is Wednesday, and we'll have several more. I believe 4 on the docket for Thursday, and then 2 on Friday. So y'all check those out. If you have any questions or comments for either me or Mike, you can follow or you can contact us on Twitter. I'm at Clint Buckley, and Mike, you are at Mike_ETSN, correct?
Yeah, and please follow me.
Yes, you don't need followers. You're up over 3,000. I'm inches from 2,000. I gained like 70 followers in that Gilmer Gladewater game.
Yeah, that state championship, I think, push us.
I hope so. So anyway, y'all have a great week. There were a lot of great games. I just wish more were on Saturday, just for the fans' sake. I mean, 7 good ones on Friday. It's going to be tough for some of the neutral observers to pick out which ones to go to. and then the 2 on Saturday are both at the same time. So I would, just to have a blast. I think you can flip a coin and go to any one of a number of these games and see some good football. So enjoy yourselves this weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week, where we will be talking about teams 1 win away from reaching the state championship game. We'll see y'all next week.
Here I go, 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 here I go.
The air is cool, the sky is gray, and the leaves are all kinds of colors, cluttering up everybody's lawn. It's December and Christmas is approaching, but before all of that, the state of Texas will crown 10 11-man football state champions in just a couple of weeks, and East Texas has 10 teams left that still have that goal alive for them. Welcome to the ETSN.fm podcast. I am Clint Buckley, and I'm joined by Mike Graham. How was your holiday, Mike?
It was good, and I got an oil change.